Alright, we're going to call this example. So I already have my graphics file loaded in to the PCB maker. I made this graphics file in Fusion 360. That's where you basically dictate how thick the board is going to be, what the edge cuts are going to be. I leave certain holes on here so I can set points of origin, so I can lay things over the top of this. So we're going to go to Bitmap to Component Converter, and what you do is, after you create your images in Inkscape, when you export them, you want to export them around 1000 dpi. When you export them at around 1000 dpi and make the background of the image white rather than clear, it allows you to bring it into Bitmap Converter and completely wipe out any sense of the background, leaving only the lines and giving you two colors, black and white. And so when you load an image into Bitmap Converter, it ends up as a black and white image, and that's what's going to be on your board. Now, you can dictate whether or not it is going to be copper, silkscreen, or Soldermask. If it is going to be Soldermask, it is going. Think of it like this: if you lay something onto Soldermask layer, it is then going to become a negative layer. So if you put something on the Soldermask, that's where Soldermask will be removed rather than added. So what you then do is, say if you want a copper layer below that, you put a copper layer and then the exact same Soldermask layer, and that will then allow you to expose that, and then you have them plated in HASL, or you can have them do it in the gold looking one. I can't remember what that's called, NING or something like that, or ENING, I believe. But anyway, that's not the point. So the problem with this is, when you are loading things into Bitmap Converter, it only gives you front silkscreen or front Soldermask, user layer eco 1, user layer eco 2, rather than giving you the ability to just dictate that you want it on the copper layer, or you want it on, say, the Soldermask layer. So we're going to load in a image that I have for the copper layer, right? So when you set it to 1000 dpi, it's going to end up really, really big here. You do not want that image to be teeny tiny. You want it to be really big so you get all of the fine detail. So now we're going to export that. It does not matter what we click over here. I suggest keeping it at front silkscreen or front Soldermask. And then what we're going to do is we're going to load this into a graphics file. So I'm just going to call it example copper layer. Okay, now say if I have the exact same thing for the Soldermask, which I do, it's the exact same image, just Soldermask. We're going to export that one as example, and what it does is it saves it into a KiCad _mod file, and that's very, very important to note. This is the Soldermask layer. So, and then we're going to want some silkscreen. So I'm going to just call this example silkscreen. That one you do want to set to front silkscreen. That is kind of important on that one. Okay, so now we get out of the bitmap editor, and one very important thing is to go where you have those files. Okay, so they're going to save as a .mod file, and what you want to do with that .mod file is you want to open them in a normal standard text editor. So when it is in that text editor, you can go into it, like say here is the copper layer. We're going to open that up, Now we want this to be on front copper layer. So this right here, if you look, it says layer f.silks. Now we want to grab that, and we're going to go to replace, and you are going to then change that to f.cu and hit replace all. Click OK, exit out of that, and then save it. And what that then did was that changed that file from being on a different layer, a silkscreen layer or a Soldermask layer, etc., to the front copper layer, and then it changed all instances of front silkscreen to front copper layer. This will then make that layer specifically go on the front copper. I'm going to show you one more thing when I open the next one to do the Soldermask. This one, instead of saying front silkscreen, must say front or f.mask or mask. Mask. It's funny. So we're going to change that to f.mask and replace all. Hit OK, hit X, and hit save. Now something to note, if you are on the back side, if you look at the very, very top, this says layer f.cu. So that means this is on the front side total. That has nothing to do with this one, but that's just saying that this is on the front side. Now, if you were to change this to a B, and it was to say back copper, and then you did back Soldermask, everything would be on the other side, and that's how you start doing all of the same stuff on the opposite side of the board as well. So we save this, we exit out, and then we're going to open up just the example silkscreen as well. That's f.cu, f.silkscreen, so that one's perfect, and we don't have to change anything. So now we go back into the PCB, and you want to give your program the ability to know where those new footprints were. So we're going to go up to Preferences, Manage Footprint Libraries, go to Project Specific Libraries, open that folder, and we're going to go to Graphics because that's where we saved all of that in. Hit OK, and that's going to make this a project specific library. Hit OK, and now when you lay down a footprint, you can lay down the footprint specifically for the back copper, front copper, front Soldermask, and then you can utilize the silkscreen as a Soldermask, or a component as well. So let's just give this a moment. I completely forgot about the fact that it takes about 2.5 minutes on my computer to load the libraries because I have a missing library. So I'll just jabberjaw during this little 2 minutes here. There's a couple different things you can do, but you have to take into consideration that A, rendering takes a really long time, and B, you can run into some issues if you have a slower computer. You can make multiple pictures or multiple traces of the same image and then leave certain parts in, leave certain parts, or take certain parts out, fill certain parts, adjust the stroke on certain parts, and then you can kind of do what I did to that Furby. That Furby was, if I remember right, 6 different layers to create the Soldermask, the shiny stuff, the silk screen, just to have that all in different spots. It took like 6 layers. Okay, so now since I gave footprint specific libraries the ability to go to graphics, that's where I have those examples saved. So we are going to grab the example copper layer, and for some reason it turned red. I don't know why, but either way, now we have our copper layer. Okay, so you would just place that on the board wherever you needed to place it. Like, obviously you're trying to get it to match up. That's what origins are for, but this one's kind of hard to set an origin on. just because of the style I did with it. For some reason it's purple. Usually it's red. So we're going to click on this and go to properties just to make sure it's on front copper. Okay, so it is. It's on f.cu. That's another way that you can change it if you're having any kind of issues. You can just make sure that it's on the front or the back side of the board. It's going to be through hole on this one in specific. So yeah, so this is the front copper. We're going to add another component, and that will be the front solder mask. So we're going to add the solder mask layer. We'll try to get this as even as possible. It might not be perfect, but that's fine. Because these are basically the exact same file. Right, there's just about good. Got them even. Okay. Now we're going to add the silkscreen real quick. This is going to be a pain because I got to line this up. So the silkscreen looks a little bit different. The silkscreen is what I did not want to show up as copper on this one. Okay, so now let's go to 3D viewer. This might take a moment because this is quite a dense bit of copper cutting. So that's sometimes why I have issues with these, because they'll make KiCad freeze if they're really intense files, or if they have a lot of cuts, a lot of weird copper cuts, a lot of weird fills, a lot of weird holes. Sometimes it'll take 15 minutes to render the damn picture, just so you can get an idea of what's there. Other times it'll take like 15 minutes to generate the drill files, which is really an unfortunate thing, because sometimes you think your computer's crashing and then you just shut down the program and lose a whole lot of work, which is what I did. Hopefully this loads here. It doesn't take a ridiculously long time. There's two ways you can set the render too. You can have like a full render right here if you click that. Otherwise it just builds a basic layer. There was a lot going on this one, so I'm hoping it pops up here in a moment. There we go. Okay, so now as you can see, what happened was the copper layers on the bottom, or this would all be copper layers on the bottom here. It's all the shiny stuff. And then the silkscreen goes on top. And then the opposing side is just board. So that's how you negate space and allow yourself to have exposed copper layer with silkscreen in between.